Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. This is Anissa Barbosa, an assistant district attorney in Uvalde, Texas. My involvement in NCAA leadership development programs as a student athlete and as a young professional have no doubt prepared me for success in my legal career. As a softball student athlete, I attended the Student Athlete Leadership Forum. This transformational opportunity taught me the importance of collaboration, self-awareness, and service. And from that, I was inspired to pursue a service-oriented career in the law. While in law school, I was selected for the postgraduate internship program at the NCAA National Office. I had a front row seat to historic changes in events in college athletics, such as the evolution of name, image, and likeness, and the NCAA's response to COVID-19. The fast-paced environment and unexpected crisis management experience I gained gives me the confidence to enter the courtroom as a felony prosecutor today. Enjoy the episode.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive leadership in college athletics. Our guest today is Caitlin Broadwell. Caitlin is the athletics case manager at Long Beach State. Greetings, Caitlin. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ty. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, athletics case manager. Now, I introduced you as the athletics case manager. Is that right, or are you one of many? Tell me what the athletics case manager is.
I am at Long Beach State.
Okay.
I'm the only mental health expert in the athletics department at Long Beach State.
Okay.
So we can say the athletics case manager.
Okay, excellent.
But that's a good question of like, what does that look like here? Because to be honest, when I applied for this job, I didn't even know what that meant. Because my background's in counseling. That's what I have my master's in. That's what I have my licensure in. And when I was looking for jobs out of grad school, I was hoping to get into an athletic department. And the job description for this position matched everything that I was looking for in providing mental health care to student athletes. But the name athletics case manager really threw me off because I was like, what is this? I haven't heard of this. I've only heard of sports psychologists or athletic counselors. And I think, to be honest, Long Beach State didn't really know what that looked like either because it was a brand new position. And I got to come in and develop a whole mental health program in the athletics department. And every day it looks completely different, but majority of my work is meeting with student athletes and referring them to the right people and providers, whether that's psychiatrists, mental health therapists, mental performance coaches, or even basic needs, such as our basic needs department on campus. So I'm really just a singular person that dishes out our student athletes to the right people.
Okay, excellent. Educate me on what APCC stands for.
Yes, APCC means I am currently finishing up my licensure hours. So,
Okay.
therapists, mental health therapists, or anyone that got their degree in counseling, marriage, family therapy, have to do 2 years of getting their hours under a supervisor. And so I am going to be completely licensed in January 2026. So I only have a couple months left of being an associate professional clinical counselor.
Okay.
And then I'll graduate to a licensed professional clinical counselor.
Okay. Licensed professional clinical. So will you have LPCC after your name?
I'll
or
have
what will be?
I'll have LPCC. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So that's interesting. So athletics case manager. So you're the primary for athletics to figure out where people need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then do you actually see student athletes, A, and then B, being that you're still getting hours, is there a person that you're under in the department or at school, or tell me how that works?
Yeah. So my direct work is what I do like majority of the time. So I'm meeting with student athletes. And so they'll come into my office. I'm housed in the athletic training room, and a lot of the student athletes are very familiar with me because I'm always at their practices, games, or just in the training room. And they know whenever they're not feeling like themselves or they know they need to get referred to support, they'll come meet with me. I do an intake, and it's a very thorough intake. It's looking at everywhere from what's their family background, what have they been experiencing, how long it's been happening, are they eating, are they sleeping, what does the whole picture look like? And that way I can know, okay, not only do you need mental health support, but maybe I can send you to look at getting an EBT card, see if you qualify for CalFresh and getting extra support there. And that way it helps the student athlete from a holistic lens rather than just the singular mental health lens. And so that's like where most of my work comes from, and then following up on their cases. And then the other parts of my work is contacting providers, making sure that all of their student athletes that they're meeting with are, getting everything they need. Other high risk cases, I'm just following along and making sure the whole care team is all on the same page. And so I'm working with psychiatrists, our sports medicine team, the admin of athletics, coaches. Sometimes their teammates are coming to me reporting concerns, and so it's really I'm touching a lot of different areas within athletics.
Yeah,
And
that's
then I forgot
interesting.
your second
The
question.
second question was, being that you're still getting hours before you're fully licensed, is there somebody that you work under, and is that person on campus too?
Yes, the hours part, my licensure process is not really through athletics.
Okay,
I also do private practice on the side.
I
So
see.
I just do psychotherapy with normal population folks. And
Normies,
so
that's
my
hilarious.
supervisor she does have a history of working in athletics, which is super helpful, but she has her own private practice. It's called Pacific Mindful,
Okay.
and my hours are mostly through there.
Okay, so then when you get your license in January,
Mhm.
what will change other than the
Just
letters?
yeah,
Just the
just
letters?
the letters, and I'll be able to fully practice, on my own. I don't have to be under supervision,
Right.
essentially. But I hope she still stays in my life because I'll need that help.
Right. Well, let me rephrase that question. Will you change anything in your role at Long Beach State
Mm.
when you become a fully licensed clinical counselor?
No, no, nothing will change.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Excellent. All right, good. So your background, you've been in this role how long at Long Beach State?
This is coming up 3 years now.
3 years at Long Beach State. And when we're in a
Mhm.
role after a year or two, we kind of get into our groove in terms of, how we want to present ourselves and our philosophy on what we're doing. Your background, uh, volleyball, transferred a couple times, grad transfer, I believe, and
Mhm.
then dealt with the transition with what I call athlete identity syndrome a little bit.
Mhm.
I've kind of found in talking to a number of different clinicians, for example, I talked to Dr. Stephanie Coakley at Temple, and I think Dr. Lakeitha Poole, who's I believe a mentor of yours,
Yeah.
in terms of like the identity crisis that athletes go through when they finish playing. And I tend to think that it's not emphasized enough on campuses. The student athletes at Long Beach State are lucky to have someone like you there who actually seems to make this your top priority with them, the transition. But a lot of us athletes, we figure it out, graduating, and we got to figure out who we are and what we do in the world, how who we are applies to what we do in the world. So I wonder, is it just your experience that made this important to you,
Mm.
or like, growing up with athletes, a bunch of different athletes, did you see them and that helped to have a passion for this specific subject, which I have called athlete identity syndrome?
Yes, I love that term. I think it should stick.
Okay, use it
Um
then.
Yes, it's so real. So, I actually oddly became passionate about this little niche in the athletic space in 2016. So, I wasn't even close to finishing up my college career then, but I was living with 16 college volleyball players. There was an internship in California where we got to train and then work on the side. And it was 2016. The Rio Olympics were about to come on that summer. And in California, the women's national volleyball team was training in Anaheim, and they had about a few weeks left of their training. And just a few weeks before they shipped out to Rio, they did their last round of cuts. And our one of those athletes that got cut ended up moving in with 16 college volleyball players to continue training while she kind of figures out what's next. And I heard her story of how, just like she was about to go to the Olympics and reach her dreams, and just 2 weeks before, it just, like, got cut like that, and they gave her a trash bag and said, "Put everything in your locker in there and, like, good luck." And I was like, "Wait, that's it? Like, you've trained your whole life, for it to be taken away like that?" And that completely opened up my eyes to how devastating that transition can be for athletes. And so then all throughout college, I started researching it with every like research paper. In grad school, I started doing it. And then I had my own transitions. I retired, or I thought I was retiring from indoor after my 4 years of competing, and then decided, okay, I'll go play beach volleyball. And then retired from a whole different level. And I got to experience completely different transitions, and that's where I started developing programming for student athletes on preparing them for life after sport. And now it's kind of turned into what I do here at Long Beach State with our student athletes in many different capacities. One of them being the podcast that I have, Hanging Up the Jersey, where I just interview folks sharing their story about how they transitioned, because we need that representation of you're gonna be okay, like, it's really hard. This is, like, what they had to go through, because of their story, but then most of the people I've interviewed are thriving now, and, it's not, a crisis at that point. And so that piece really gives students hope. That's my goal anyway. And then, with Long Beach State, I started off doing, a program called Life After Long Beach. It was really just a 2-hour workshop for our senior student athletes, and our 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 athletics department has been building out curriculum, or courses for our student athletes. So we had a freshman year course that's been going on for about 2 years now. So all of our freshman student athletes take this course. They get 1 credit, and it's basically like how to survive in college. And then last year, or this past year, was our first year we rolled out the senior student athlete course. Um, and as we were preparing, they were like, "Can we basically use what you did in the workshop for the curriculum?" And I was like, "Well, like, I'm writing a book, so it's, like, gonna be a whole book and curriculum." And they're like, "Perfect, can we use that? Like, finish that up this summer and let's use it." And so now it's a whole class, and I get to teach some of the classes. Other classes, we let experts in whatever topic teach on that. But we get to have conversations about their identity, multiple identities besides their athletic identity, and what they're expecting, and the grief that they're already kind of preemptively feeling already about saying goodbye to sport. So it's turned into this big thing, all because I was just like really feeling for this girl that just got cut from the
Hmm.
Olympics back in 2016.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's actually very excellent. So, being as that there's a curriculum now, I imagine, can you identify one or two or three things that I guess student athletes could do and or institutions can do to prepare student athletes as they arrive on potentially the end of their uh, athletic career? Like, are there things that are in place? My thoughts are, help people understand what their core values are, so at least they know who they are. You're probably
Hmm.
still going to deal with some type of grieving no matter what, because the competition is gone. But
Yeah.
it's easier if you kind of know who you are. Are there one or two things that you feel like should be in place, or the athletes can do, or institutions can put in place?
Yeah, on the athlete side,
Hmm.
there's so much research that talks about how they can help themselves prepare for life after sport. And some of the key tasks that I've found that kind of line up in a lot of the papers is talking about building a community. And because athletes, like, I'm sorry, all throughout my life, athletes have only been my friend. Like, my teammates are my friends. And when that is gone, you have to learn how to make friends, and that's really hard. And so building a community outside of athletics, outside of your teammates is really, really critical in, like, their transition. And so my biggest advice is always having my student athletes get into hobbies and activities and social circles that aren't surrounding their sport. So whether that's, if they have a music interest or an art interest or they want to play other sports, it's tapping into those areas. So it separates themselves of I'm not only a volleyball player, but I also love to play pickleball. I also love going to concerts and spending time with music and nature. And so it really expands their identity. So that's not their sole identity. And when, that's over, it's not as crushing because they have other interests and hobbies that they can invest their time in.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's similar to what Dr. Coakley told me when I had her on the podcast. Similar thing, right? You start helping them find interests that are outside of the sport they play while they're still playing so that it softens the landing when they actually transition. One of my thoughts, and I don't know if anybody agrees with me, but one of my thoughts is when Tom Brady was going through his issue, right? A lot of people talked about the divorce, which was probably weighed on him a lot. But I think a lot of the issue at the time was him trying to separate from being a star athlete at a high level who had just won the Super Bowl, and now I'm being asked to retire.
Mhm.
And he had been playing at a high level probably since 7 years old. So this is 30 some odd, 32, 33, 34 years playing at a high level, winning, especially at the highest level. And now I'm supposed to just give it up, which is hard to do. So
Mhm.
I think there was probably some of that in there in terms of his transition, what he's going through, what he went through with his ex-wife, all those things. That's hard, especially if you've been playing at a high level. For one thing, Dr. Coakley said is like the longer you play and the more successful you are, the harder it is to transition away. Do you
Mhm.
have any thoughts on, wait, you have any thoughts on that first, what I just said about Tom Brady?
Yes. I mean, I was also thinking about how even though Tom Brady, retired recently, we have now the landscape for athletics, college athletics, and professional athletics is changing so fast, especially for female athletes finally getting the clout that they deserve. Um, but with that, the success, and the benefits of being at such a high level makes it 10 times more difficult than transitioning earlier on, and that's, like, part of my story too because I first retired from indoor volleyball from a D2, where no one really cared that much that I played at Colorado State Pueblo. My friends were proud of me, but it wasn't something that a lot of people really looked up to. But as soon as I went to LSU and played beach volleyball there, that completely shifted how I viewed myself and that identity, of being an athlete got so much deeper, and so that's why that transition was so much harder for me because I was getting all of this attention from people who even though I played the past 4 years and did really well, now that I'm at LSU and it's a well-known, really well-established athletic school, now I'm getting all this attention and clout. It feels good, and it's a dopamine rush, and, that's who I am, and I love saying that I played there still to this day, but giving that up and, like, helping athletes, when they're, like, that high of, a caliber athlete, can be a lot more difficult because even though I knew that, most of my life it wasn't, as high stakes as it was when I was leaving LSU.
Mhm.
So that I totally I can't comprehend the level that professional athletes like NFL or NBA players that have that, are able to let that athlete identity go.
Yeah, yeah, that's tough. So one thing I've been uh, mulling on over the last couple of years with this athlete identity syndrome is that a, like you just mentioned, high profile athletes, male or female, have to deal with this separation no matter how well they did or what school they played at. But
Mhm.
now, when you're high profile and you're getting money in college, to
Mhm.
me, it seems like the separation is even more enhanced and exponential because A, I got this regular thing that I'm separating from, but now I got to go find a job that's going to pay me probably one third of what I was making when I was in college as an athlete, which
Mhm.
sounds crazy to say. And
Mhm.
so now that's not available to me anymore if I haven't put things in place and done things right. So I wonder if you have any thoughts on that aspect of where we see in terms of high profile athletes in college.
Yeah, and that is exactly what I mean by the landscape is
Yeah.
changing, is there's dollar signs now
Yeah.
included where at least for female athletes, that wasn't the case earlier on, but now we have NIL, which is completely shifting how college athletics works. But yeah, these students are getting money for every post they post, and the view count and the engagements are huge when they're posting about their their like successes on the court, pool field, whatever. And then when they retire and they don't have those highlight reels to be posting on Instagram, TikTok, they're not getting as big of an engagement because their following is future student athletes or athletes that want to be like them, fans. And when the fans see that they're not posting their highlight reels anymore, the engagements go down, self-worth goes down, money goes down coming from TikTok, Instagram, and yeah, they're not getting, um, deals with local or, like, big brands because they're not playing anymore, and so that adds a whole 'nother layer that I think not a lot of people are talking about, so I'm really glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it's probably even bigger than what you've talked about because now people are getting money and NIL is not a part of the conversation.
Mhm.
Or it is, but it's really not. It's almost like when I was going to school, it was under the table, but now the
Right.
conversation is like, look, 325,000 if this offensive lineman comes here to play football. You ain't talking
Mm.
about posting nothing, right? You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And so that's even more of a problem because say that offensive lineman doesn't make it to the NFL. Well, now go
Mhm.
get a job, regular job, right?
Right.
And you ain't getting paid 325,000 coming out of college, right?
Mm-mm.
So that's difficult. And like you mentioned, women's sports, like volleyball specifically, right? It's volleyball and women's basketball. If there are more eyes watching, you imagine there's going to be more advertising dollars. So if there's more advertising dollars, the media value is going to go up, and that logically, hopefully, will bring more money into the sport, whether it be going to the players or not. And so that starts happening. You're gonna start seeing it with women too. So even with women, just like you see it with
Mm.
high profile men's sports. So I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. My job I'd taken on to just educate the masses and talk about things. You actually have done
Mhm.
research on this thing, this thing that we've coined as athlete identity syndrome. And I wonder, Long Beach State, I guess the power sports are like basketball, men's volleyball, maybe water polo there.
Mhm.
Do you see this when you're meeting with students? Do you see these things, these separation? And do you have a does Long Beach State have an apparatus set up similar to what Michigan State and LSU have, where former athletes can always come back and get some type of counseling through a third party, like the Hope Foundation or something like that?
Right. We don't have anything set up like that. But, back to the original question of do I see this, I think the transfer portal, the COVID extra year, I think they're talking about changing how junior college
Oh yeah,
transfers
right.
count towards eligibility. All of this, has been actually really incredible to watch because I'm watching some of my student athletes that are in their 5th or 6th years of playing, still trying to scrape and find a way to get one more year, despite maybe their body not really needing another year, like, their body's like, "Please let me, like, retire,"
Yeah, right.
um, because of their identity, especially in social media, especially because they're getting money and
Hmm.
NIL deals. They're not wanting to retire. They're not ready to transition. They don't want to step into the real world. And how can we blame them? Like, there's so much that they get out of it. But it is really hard to watch because now that I'm on the other side of experiencing life after all of that, I'm like, there's so much more that we can be doing and tapping into, and like you could be exploring about yourself. That I think it's like stunting their identity
Oh,
growth
okay.
at this age.
That makes sense because I'm trying to stay, which I probably, if I was getting money, I was a walk on at Michigan State and there wasn't any money coming my way. But if I was getting money, yeah, I'm gonna probably, if I didn't think I was a professional athlete or if I was in a sport where professional athletes seem to get paid a whole lot, yeah, I'm definitely trying to
Hmm.
stay this extra year so I can get this extra loot, which is super
Totally.
interesting. I'll ask you a couple questions and we'll wrap. First question, I want you to tell me again, because I don't remember your answer. What should organizations be doing? You mentioned helping them find hobbies and find other interests.
Hmm. Hmm.
Does that mean like getting them involved with student organizations on campus? Like, because a lot of times, like you mentioned, athletes don't have time, and coaches sometimes aren't about you getting into other things because that takes away from what we're doing here. Is there a
Hmm.
formalized way that you do it at Long Beach State that if there are any other administrators or mental health and well-being professionals listening to this podcast could take and put in place?
Yes. I A lot of universities do a great job of bringing programming to their student athletes, whether
Okay.
that is career nights or resume building workshops. There was so much education on the financial aspect of what happens to you after sport, your job piece. And so it's really just adding to what's already there. You Universities already have the funding to bring these programmings in for the financial aspect of transitioning out of sport. So it's also adding the emotional side, the physical side, the just overall health and wellness piece to the transition. And at Long Beach State, we now have a whole class that senior student athletes
Oh, yeah, it's
will
a
be
class, right?
taking that help prepare them for life after sport. And that's a semester long. We get really in depth, but I
I
think
like that
if
idea.
that's not possible, universities are able to do workshops or other programming. And I think simply just talking about it, bringing alumni in to share their experiences, it has been really impactful for us. And so there's really cost efficient ways to be addressing this need. And the NCAA has also pointed out that this topic is needed um, to be had like with that student athlete population in their recommendations for D1 universities. And so this is a topic that is important and is being talked about right now. Um, and I think it's really easy to add into the programming that's already built for student
Right, but
athletes.
there's something you said there I think is important, and I don't know how many schools do it. Maybe this is something that all schools do. I don't know because I haven't worked on campus. But most schools bring people in to do workshops, etc. A lot of times it's once they may have different things throughout the semester or through the year. I don't know how many times somebody repeats. But a class, on the other hand, it's a mandatory class. Is it a part of their mandatory education for them to graduate? To your senior student athlete, you have to be in this class.
It's not mandatory, but mandatory.
Yeah, yeah, no, highly recommended. We'll say that.
Yeah.
So I think that's excellent, right? Because it's a whole semester worth of
Mhm.
things that focus on this. I think that's an excellent idea. A class focused on
Yeah.
senior student, and this is all. I'll be in there with swimmers and basketball players and all this kind of thing. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
My last question here. So you mentioned that the curriculum for the class, they use your curriculum there at Long Beach State, and that will be a book available to people. What is this
Mhm.
book called? How is it set up? Is it a straight read? Is it a workbook? Talk to me a little bit about this book.
Yes, so hanging up the jersey, the workbook,
Okay.
it is a workbook that really touches on different areas of the transition. The different areas being what to expect physically, so how your body changes, how your nutrition changes, how you don't have access to athletic trainers at the snap of your fingers anymore. It talks about emotionally, so the grief, the piece of like, how do I cope with all of this? And then talks about the financial piece. So it gives little tidbits of how to financially prepare and plan post athletics. And then it has life skills, teaching, like how to make a schedule, how do I make friends socially, how do I network, and then it has a little bit of career related items. And so this workbook is like supposed to fully encompass just like the different areas of specifically how being a student athlete is difficult transitioning to not being a student athlete. And it's a workbook. So, you read about the topics and the research that states like what student athletes experience usually in that specific area. And then it has an activity to kind of match with it. So we do a lot of value work. We do um, finding different hobbies and how to make friends, and our student athletes had a lot of fun going through that workbook, and I think a part of it was because we got to process and talk about it in class together, so that was really helpful, but, yeah, I this workbook will be available on Amazon, hopefully in the coming month. I wish I had an exact date, but yeah, the goal is to get it to anybody that is ready to transition, is about to transition, or already has transitioned out of sport.
Okay, excellent. So your podcast is called Hanging Up the Jersey,
Mhm.
and the book that will be published soon is called Hanging Up the Jersey, the workbook, right?
Yes, yes, correct.
Excellent, Caitlin. This has been an excellent conversation. One thing I do appreciate is offline, I asked you about college athletics and where are you in terms of your career? And you said, well, college athletics isn't primary. What's primary for me is student athletes. And that shows the passion you have for what you do. And I really appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Awesome, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am. That was Caitlin Broadwell. She is the athletics case manager at Long Beach State. And of course, I am Ty Brown with one question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today.